There is a moment in the ancient Egyptian teachings where death is not described as an ending, but as a carefully guided passage, a sacred journey that must be understood, prepared for, and consciously navigated. When we study the Egyptian Book of the Dead deeply, we begin to realize that it is not simply a funerary text. It is a manual of transformation. It is a map of consciousness. It is a spiritual technology designed to help the soul remember who it truly is after leaving the physical body. In the funeral procession described in these sacred plates, we see the body of the deceased placed within a shrine or chest that is mounted upon a ceremonial boat. This boat is not random symbolism. The boat represents movement between worlds, the crossing from the visible realm into the invisible. It is drawn by oxen along runners, almost as if the earthly world itself must carry the soul toward its next initiation. At the head and foot of the mummy stand small sacred figures of Isis and Nephthys. These divine feminine forces are not merely mourners. They are guardians of rebirth. They represent protection, magic, and the power to restore life beyond death. Beside the sacred boat kneels the grieving wife, lamenting. Around them walk mourners, attendants, and priests. One of the most important figures is the Sem priest, recognized by his panther skin garment, a powerful symbol of mastery over instinct, shadow, and primal forces. He performs libations and burns incense, offering purification and energetic alignment for the soul's journey. These rituals were not symbolic gestures for comfort. They were believed to activate real spiritual mechanisms that would help the consciousness of the deceased awaken in the afterlife. Behind the procession, a sepulchral chest crowned with the image of Anubis, the jackal-headed guardian of the threshold, is drawn upon a sledge. Anubis represents guidance through the unknown. He is the intelligence that helps the soul navigate the dark passage between dimensions. This entire procession reveals something profound. Death, in Egyptian understanding, required preparation, ceremony, knowledge, and spiritual authority. One did not simply die and drift into mystery. One was escorted into the next stage of evolution. As the teachings continue, we see the ritual of opening the mouth. This sacred act was performed so that the deceased could speak, breathe, see, and hear again in the spiritual realm. The priests used special instruments, purification vessels, sacred feathers, and ritual tools placed carefully beside the body. Every detail mattered. This was an alchemical process, not of turning metal into gold, but of turning mortality into conscious immortality. The texts then move into the powerful declarations of the soul itself. The deceased speaks as Osiris, as Thoth, as Horus. This is not delusion or fantasy. This is identification with divine consciousness. The soul proclaims victory over enemies, mastery over darkness, and the ability to move freely between realms. It declares participation in cosmic events, sacred festivals, and celestial battles. Through these affirmations, the soul is not begging for salvation. It is remembering its divine nature. There is a profound psychological and spiritual insight here. The Egyptians understood that identity shapes destiny. The soul that remembers its divine origin becomes victorious. The soul that forgets becomes bound. This is why the texts are filled with invocations, hymns, and statements of power. They were meant to train the consciousness while still alive, so that at death, remembrance would be natural. One of the most beautiful passages speaks about entering the fields of Aru, the Egyptian paradise, where wheat grows abundantly and the soul continues to flourish as it did on earth. This is not portrayed as passive rest. It is continuation, growth, participation in divine order. The soul receives bread, ale, offerings, and recognition. It is welcomed, not erased. But entry into this state requires something crucial: knowledge. The rubric explains that if the writing is known by the deceased and performed correctly, the soul may take any form it desires, travel freely by day, and not be rejected from sacred places. This suggests that spiritual literacy, understanding sacred laws, symbols, and cosmic rhythms, was considered essential preparation for transcendence. When we step back and observe these teachings as a whole, we begin to see that the Egyptian Book of the Dead is actually a guide for conscious evolution. It teaches purification, identity transformation, ritual discipline, divine alignment, and energetic sovereignty. It teaches that the human being is not merely a physical organism, but a multidimensional traveler. And this is where these ancient teachings become deeply relevant today. Because even though most of us are not preparing for a ceremonial procession drawn by oxen or guided by temple priests, we are still facing initiations. We are still crossing thresholds, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. We are still being asked to remember who we are beyond fear, beyond conditioning, beyond survival patterns. The true afterlife journey begins long before physical death. It begins the moment you choose awareness over unconscious reaction. It begins the moment you study yourself, purify your intentions, and reclaim your inner authority. The Egyptians were not obsessed with death, they were obsessed with awakening. If this perspective resonates with you, if you feel drawn to understand deeper layers of your soul path, your energetic patterns, and the symbolic language of transformation, this is exactly the work I guide people through. You don't have to navigate these thresholds alone. Through intuitive sessions and soul readings, we can explore your personal initiations and help you move through them with clarity and power. Follow me for more teachings that bridge ancient wisdom with modern awakening. And if you feel ready to go deeper, you can book a one-to-one session with me. The link is in my bio. Your journey of conscious transformation is already unfolding. The question is, are you ready to walk it with awareness,